Great. Well, I'm very fortunate to be interviewing Angela Lim today. Angela, why don't you describe what it is you do as a super diverse woman?
Sure. I think so my full-time job is I work as a doctor at Middlemore Hospital, but in my spare time I sort of dabble with a few other things. I run a startup which is trying to support innovation in the health sector, as well as I sit on a few boards from not-for-profit as well as government, mostly focused around vulnerable communities, around addressing inequality for gender, like female inequality, as well as ethnic and health inequality.
How does that reflect itself in health?
Yeah, so inequality, I think, is rife in health. Often when we see patients, they already come with a background of inequality, and what I mean by that is they often have, for example, a more socioeconomic deprived background, and that affects how they access healthcare. So often, instead of going to see the doctors early, they'll end up waiting until they get so bad they have to be seen in the hospital. And so we see that in our statistics as well, in our health outcomes. We often see that Māori and Pacific tend to have poorer health outcomes. They tend to be hospitalised more. They tend to have more medical conditions, and the ability to do well from, say, an operation is less positive than, say, your Kiwi man, for example.
So tell me about being in Auckland and being able to do these things. How does Auckland facilitate your ability to work on these issues?
Yeah, I think Auckland's a great place to work because it is already a melting pot of diversity. And I think often the conversations that's had in government, in our communities, sometimes don't reflect the change that has already occurred. And so often we're quite reactive to issues. And being able to, for me, to sit on boards allows me to do a little bit more of that future planning, or a little bit more of actually raising those issues around what I see in my community. And by being different myself, being diverse, being young, being female, being ethnic, and being a migrant, all those allow me to bring a viewpoint that if you're just born in New Zealand and you're of European heritage, you have biases that you don't see.
So do you find the culture in Auckland conducive to that? I mean, Tamaki Makaurau means a place desired by many.
Yes.
Is it a place where a super diverse person like you can operate?
Absolutely. One of the things that I missed the most when I decided to do a stint up in Whangarei was I miss the connectivity of Auckland, where because I wear so many different hats and I juggle so many different things, I often need to bounce ideas, share ideas, get advice, and push through things with different groups of people. And I had found that it was a lot easier in Auckland because it was an attractive place and there was all sorts of people with different interest areas that I could then find friendship and professional relationships with.
Okay. So in terms of super diverse women, does it matter to you that there's a group now that you're a part of? What difference does it make that we are all super diverse?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I won this award earlier in the year, and it recognized, I guess, for me, my leadership and governance at a young age. But what struck me was when I was in the room that I'd say 90% of the room was European. Yes, it was a award that was about celebrating gender diversity on the board, but I think the conversation was still around just having 50% of the women on the board and not around actually if those 50% of the women are just Pākehā women, are we really getting the diversity that we want? And I think having an organisation like this where we try and celebrate and network and connect women of very diverse background allows you to have a more visible look around. It does exist. We have no excuse to say that we can't put them on boards, can't put them in our senior leadership teams, because they exist, but we because of whatever conscious and unconscious biases that we have, we don't see them and we don't put them in those positions.
So, question to you: how has your journey been different because you're an ethnic migrant woman, as opposed to a woman that was just born here and maybe of European descent?
Yeah, I think I think it allows me to really see things differently. So often we do function in a society where the structure is Eurocentric, and what I mean by that is, if you look at the way we engage in society, often it is based on someone who might be a middle class to European person and how they would engage in their lives, and a lot of our senior leaders and our people who sit around the table making decisions tend to reflect that. And so that is the way they then design it. It's not malicious, it's just the fact that there hasn't been that diversity around the conversation when we're structuring our society to reflect that. And often, again, when we talk about health, for example, you asked me about the different outcomes for those of minorities or vulnerable groups, and the challenge is because that's not the way they engage in health. And so if you structure a health system that only really reflects the needs of a small group of people, then you're not going to be able to support those people that are coming through that don't use the system the way you do. And so I think it is important that that I am able to provide a different viewpoint to if I was European. I do think that it has also worked in my advantage. I think often people can let, I guess, the negativity of being different hold them back, but I've tried to accept that they exist, but not let them sort of predetermine my outputs. Instead, I've used it as a way of separating myself from the room. And like I said before, with that award that I got given through Women's on Board, it's like, I'm sure the reason I was probably selected was also because I was different from everyone else that applied, who were mostly probably lawyers or accountants of
So do you think there is visibility around the issues concerning indigenous ethnic migrant women? The fact that we don't just have gender, but we've also got other barriers to contend with?
I think that we're nowhere near the maturity in terms of our conversation that we have. Often when we think about Asian, we think just China. When we think about talking about Asian issues, we immediately think about what is given to us in the media, which is, for example, all the Asians are buying up all our houses. And so I think in terms of actually truly acknowledging that Asians do have issues, and they're not the ones that are taking all the benefit and providing problems to the rest of the country. I think we're away, sometimes a little bit away from that. And so it's, for example, I've done 2 research projects that looked at minority and their health outcomes. And actually both times I found that Asian health is getting like the outcomes, even though at the moment they're better than everyone else, if that makes sense, but the trend is negative. So their outcomes is getting worse when everyone's trends are reversing and getting better. I think again it's reflective of a system that hasn't really planned and acknowledged that Asians do have different health conditions that you need to plan for and then provide services to support those needs. And so often with policies, there is going to be a time lag, and unless we are active and proactive in anticipating these problems, they are going to reflect 5-10 years down the line, and then we're going to say, why did that happen? Because we've never thought about it earlier.
Understood. So in terms of SUPERdiverse WOMEN, what benefits do you think that an organisation like this could bring to New Zealand?
I think, again, like I said, it's mostly around the visibility that we do exist. I think often it's easy to say, we don't have these women available, so by default we have to stick to the status quo, but actually by being very vocal and visible that they do exist, that they are producing the outcomes that you want to see, and it's not just a rhetoric, it's not just theory, and it's out there in practice of many different stages. So I'm probably one of your younger super diverse women, anyone to maybe someone 10, 20, 30 years my senior of many different levels. And I think by being able to show that those pipeline across the different stages and ages do exist, I think that allows people to then start saying that I can be proactive in planning my workforce.
So where are you from originally?
I'm from Malaysia.
Right, fantastic. And when did you arrive in New Zealand?
I arrived 10 years ago when I was 16.
Wow. And so your family came?
Yes, my whole family came, and I honestly couldn't have done it without them.
No, absolutely. And what does your mum and dad do here?
My mom's a real estate agent, and my dad's an engineer. So he's like a middle manager at an engineering company.
And New Zealand is your home? And you
yes, and New Zealand is definitely home. And I mean, and that's the thing with Asia. It's quite cutthroat, and New Zealand and Auckland has given me opportunities that I could never dream of if I had stayed in Asia.
It's fantastic. Right. Thank you very much, Angela.
That's right.